It is just a normal day on Earth, with the globe making its way around its axis as usual, when something suddenly strikes it from outer space, causing quite the impact, and then the alerts start blaring like crazy on phones and in the streets, warning people about the invasion of the strongest species, extraterrestrial life forms, or as people commonly know them, aliens, and advising people in the surrounding area to evacuate to shelters. It keeps blaring and warning, and the people on the ground stop whatever they're doing and watch in fear as a mighty dragon-like alien reveals itself and starts terrorizing their city and causing mass destruction everywhere. This mighty creature now stands before a young boy, looking as fierce and intimidating as ever. But this young man isn't moved, and his name is Kurobo Higui, a brave hero who declares that he will never lose to a monster, even though it's 100 times his size. Kurobo Higui has always had a stubborn pride ever since he was born, and on this very day he gets eaten without a second thought, along with that pride of his, making a wonderful snack for the dragon alien. A quick backstory. 10 years ago, a massive swarm of extraterrestrial life forms known as EVA arrived from space in thousands, and they didn't hesitate to make themselves at home on the planet, causing mass destruction and inflicting terror, and human weapons proved completely ineffective against them, so basically humanity was toast, and it seemed like there was no hope. Just then, all of humanity awakened to their alpha abilities, ironically enough due to the cosmic substance star elements scattered by the very same creatures that were causing them terror, and it gave them the power to fight against these monsters with superhuman gifts, and that's how the counter began. Back to the present, earlier that same day, students arrive at the 8th Special Forces Training School, which is the country's top training academy aimed at fostering children 15 and older with exceptional alpha abilities to raise them into an unbeatable fighting force. Young Kurobo Higui is also a student here, well, at least he wishes to be, because in truth he is actually just the part-time janitor in charge of picking garbage and stuff. The bully who reminded him of this cruel reality by throwing trash on him proceeds to pick on him even more. Humanity ranks individuals based on their alpha levels, F rank and E rank being the lowest and regarded as normal civilians, then D rank up to A rank as special soldiers, and then S rank is the most powerful and the smallest of the entire population. This system is specifically designed to quickly respond to EVAs, and amidst all that, Kurobo Higui is the only human on Earth who hasn't awakened any alpha abilities, so technically he is not recognized even at the lowest rank, which is F rank, and cannot attend school since he is rankless. But that doesn't mean he is some loser who takes bullying without ever fighting back. He picks up the trash and tells the bully to clean it up like he should, no matter his rank, but that ultimately leads to some intense beating and whooping that leaves him half-conscious and still with the trash. The bully then picks Kurobo Higui up and makes it as clear as he possibly can never to order someone like him who is in A rank, especially considering that Kurobo Higui is nothing but some unranked trash. The bully then takes it a bit further and activates his Flame Alpha ability in an attempt to burn it into Kurobo Higui's thick skull, but before he can get any damage in, the flame completely freezes in his hands. The bully immediately turns around to see a fine young lady talking down to him for using his abilities against powerless citizens instead of saving it for the EVAs. The girl who put out his flames in an instant is known as Hyuga Orion, an S rank that is also known as the Ice Wall Witch, who is a first year at the school and a promising elite. The bully reluctantly lets Kurobo go, even though he clearly doesn't have much of a choice, and leaves, and then the kind Hyuga Orion picks up the trash and hands it to Kurobo Higui, scolding him for defying someone of a much higher rank, and reminding him that the rules technically don't ban high-ranked individuals from eliminating those of the lower rank if they see fit. Kurobo Higui thanks her for picking it up, but doesn't seem to heed a word she just said, because he strongly believes that a person's worth is determined purely by their actions, not by their rank or abilities. With a cheer that's not expected of someone who just had his behind handed to him by a bully, Kurobo Higui goes off to continue his cleaning, and Hyuga Orion is left completely stunned at his attitude as she watches the boy go on his merry way. 8 years ago, Kurobo Higui's mom found him crying again in the field, and he complained to her that everyone was making fun of him for not having an ability, so she assured him that it was okay to have no power, as a person's worth is not determined by what they have, but by what they do. And with the warmest smile she tells him that all he has to do is find a way to be useful to someone, and that would be enough. It took a minute, but young Kurobo Higui understood the assignment and promised to do as she said. Then after a while his mom fell really ill and had to be hospitalized, and the doctor informed him that his poor mom's body couldn't withstand her own alpha ability, and there was no cure for it. Just then, he overheard some nurses gossiping about them and mocking them for not having abilities. He never understood what was so hot about abilities or ranks, and swore to never allow those petty things to define his or his mom's worth, because it can only be defined by what they do. Back to the present, Kurobo Higui goes on a cleaning spree and diligently mops the floors, wipes the windows, and washes the toilet. And before noon, he has already finished a day's work, so he is pretty proud of himself. Everywhere is spotless, so he decides to continue with the pace and go clean the outside as well. As he is cleaning outside, he witnesses a class undergoing some practical training and decides to watch a bit with admiration. Today, the instructor has brought in a group of EVAs, all of which are C-ranked, and he announces that the students are to defeat one each all under 1 minute, since the students are already B rank or higher. The training session begins, and the EVAs are released, so Hyuga Orion uses her ice abilities and the bully uses his firepower to KO their respective EVAs in an instant. Everyone is impressed by this, but of course they'd expect nothing less from two very high-ranking students, and Kurobo Higui can only admire them from afar and say nothing. But then he gets back to his senses and realizes that he has gotten distracted for a bit there, so he goes on to throw the trash. At that exact moment, the strongest species land on Earth from whatever planet they came from, causing a huge impact as they land. Then the alarms start going crazy, alerting folks around of an EVA attack happening extremely close to the school and ordering C-rank or higher folks to help intercept. The monster appears right next to Kurobo Higui, and he can only stare in fear. Panic ensues as the strongest species approach the students of the school, making the once proud students run and scream for their mommy. The only one who doesn't immediately bolt in the opposite direction is Hyuga Orion, who still believes that as top rankers they should at least stay and try to fight. But then one unfortunate student who is not so fast on his feet gets eaten and becomes a monster snack in an instant. That shatters what's left of Hyuga Orion's courage, as she realizes that this EVA actually likes devouring humans. The monster then opens its mouth, and another mouth comes out of it like some kind of freaky mutated creature as it prepares to gobble down the girl as well, and Hyuga Orion is stricken with fear so she can't find the strength to run away, so she's basically done for. But then Kurobo Higui steps in and throws the trash bag of leaves he has on him at the monster in an attempt to distract it and buy him a few seconds. In those precious few seconds, he immediately picks up a shocked Hyuga Orion and piggybacks her, then makes a quick run for it while the EVA still tries to shake off the leaves and recover its visibility. Kurobo Higui then has the bright idea to hide in the sewers, and since he normally cleans them regularly, he has already memorized the entire layout, so they get in. Then the EVA finally catches up to them, but they're already in the sewers, so it just stares at them since it obviously can't follow them in. As Kurobo Higui gives Hyuga Orion a free piggyback ride inside the sewers in the race for their lives, she wonders why a lowly janitor would risk his life so much just for her, especially without any alpha abilities to speak of. But he reminds her of his life motto, which is the fact that you don't need an alpha ability to help people. You just need to do what you can do. She then warmly thanks him for saving her, although they're not out of the woods yet as they still need to go through these sewers and get to the shelter entrance. They pop out from the sewers just in front of the entrance to the emergency shelter like Kurobo Higui had planned, and they make it just in time as the door is about to close since the building is full of people already. He begs the people to let him and Hyuga Orion in, but the scumbag students in the shelter refuse his request, claiming that there isn't any space left for them since even the surrounding citizens had rushed in as well. Just then, one of the students recognizes Hyuga Orion as the S-rank top student and orders that space be made for her no matter what, and this is a huge relief for Kurobo Higui and Hyuga Orion as they think they're both saved now. But then the students only mean that there's space for Hyuga Orion, and they push Kurobo Higui away. They recognize him as the rankless trash they saw around the school sometimes, and they don't have space for him because he is not a priority, as he will serve absolutely no use to them in the slightest. Hyuga Orion immediately rushes to his defense and informs them that he saved her just now, and then proceeds to give up her spot if it means that he will have a chance to be saved as well. She then orders him to get in that shelter and uses her authority as a high-ranking individual to try and force him in. Just then, they feel the impact of the EVA getting near, which means that time has run out to make their decision. So the scumbags start closing the door to the shelter, and at the very last second, Kurobo Higui makes a very brave decision and pushes Hyuga Orion through the door. This shocks her, but he meant it when he said that one's alpha ability or ranking doesn't matter, only their actions. So now he's choosing to do the best he can, and even though he is this close to peeing his pants, he lets out a brave smile but with fearful tears in his eyes as he watches the only chance he has of surviving this situation slowly close shut before his very eyes. Now that his only shot out of this hell of a fate has sailed, Kurobohi Gui turns to face the consequences of his actions, which is to confront the terrifyingly huge EVA monster in front of him. And even though he is scared as hell, he is also brave enough to keep on standing his ground because he has just always been that stubborn ever since he was born. This time, his enemy is a monster that even the top rankers ran away from like scared rats, but he doesn't plan on going down without putting up a fight. He grabs a steel metal pipe and rushes straight for the EVA, because deep down he knows he doesn't have an alpha ability, but he can't lose his pride too. Before he can even finish that thought, the EVA easily gobbles him up, ending the battle in an instant before it even starts. As he is being torn apart and chewed like a tasty meat snack, he reckons that dying while saving people is not too bad of a way to sign out, especially for someone like himself. But in between the jaws of the beast, he realizes that all that crap he said was actually a huge lie. He realizes that in truth he had always wanted an alpha ability, and he hates being picked on and laughed at, and he really wanted to stick it to them. But it is all too late for that now. As he lays in the EVA's belly in pieces, all he can do is wallow in regret and tears and apologize to his mom for not being strong enough to have any real impact on the world like she wanted him to. Just then the system activates and reveals that the activation conditions for Kurobohi Gui's alpha ability, which is his death, have been met, so the apex predator black hole is activated and a literal black hole is formed. Naturally, it starts consuming everything inside the EVA's stomach, and the monster starts to notice that its belly is being eaten from the inside out. Just then, things get very painful for it as the consumption rate increases and major holes start forming on its belly. Then a big hole that is sucking it in from the inside out appears, and the consumption rate keeps increasing until it reaches 90% and has sucked in the once feared most powerful species like it was nothing. Once the consumption rate reaches 100%, it enters the decomposition and reconstitution phase, and a huge black ball forms. After a while, the ball cracks and splits open, releasing a lot of steam. Out of the steam comes a clothless Kurobohi Gui, completely stitched back together and healed, although his clothes didn't heal with him. He has absolutely no idea what just happened, because all he remembers is being eaten whole by the strongest species, and that bothers him, but what bothers him more is his angry stomach, because he is really hungry. The system then informs him that he has successfully consumed the strongest species EVA, and that he can now use its unique alpha ability, and then proceeds to ask him if he would like to use it. Kurobohi Gui sure is hungry, but before he can do anything about it, he faints and falls from the ball he was standing on, but then there's still a little bit of the black hole left on his palm, and it's still very much active. It swallows the big black ball that Kurobohi Gui was standing on, making it seem like there was nothing there in the first place. Kurobohi Gui wakes up to a ringing voice in his head, yelling at him to return its body, and once he opens his eyes, he is shocked to see the greatest species EVA just standing right in front of him, demanding that he return its body, and then it uses its tongue to kick him out. That's when Kurobohi Gui actually wakes up in the real world and in a hospital. He is first met with confusion, as apart from the strange dream he just had, being eaten alive is the last memory he has, so he is shocked to still be alive. Just then he notices the mini black hole on his hand, which only adds more to his already growing pile of questions. Then something shoots out of it like a rocket, a ghost-like creature that immediately starts yelling and yapping, demanding that he return its body. Kurobohi has no idea what he is looking at, and it really pisses the ghost thingy off that he doesn't recognize it, even though it still clearly has its markings, magnificent horns, and fangs that can tear through anything. It then proudly reveals that it is actually the strongest species, one of the many powerful aliens that invaded Earth, now in cute size. Remembering how terrifying the strongest species actually looked, Kurobohi Gui refuses to believe that the ghost plushie is really what it claims to be, so it points out that it still has the exact same patterns, which Kurobohi Gui admits are the same as the monsters, but he still can't bring himself to believe that it's the same creature. Sensing that he isn't really buying its story, the creature decides to bestow upon him the honor of knowing its actual name because the strongest species is kind of a mouthful, but then it realizes that it can't remember its name for some reason, which is quite strange. Just then, our MC truly wakes and chooses violence as he starts beating and strangling the creature, because if it is truly the strongest species like it's claiming to be, that would mean that it is responsible for all the chaos and all the students' lives that were lost that day, so he is going to start avenging them this very moment by making it pay with its life. But then the EVA ghost informs him that he has actually already devoured it, a memory that Kurobohi Gui obviously doesn't have. To prove it, the EVA ghost proceeds to inform him that his body is now actually made from its body, and now he reeks of EVA. It explains that it thought it devoured Kurobohigui back then, but it was the other way around, and he was actually the one who made a good snack of the greatest species, devouring it from the inside. This would explain why the once feared greatest species is now reduced to this cute ghost thingy that is shooting out from the black hole on his palm. And as a bonus, it can also understand human language. Kurobohi is shocked to find out that his body is actually made from an EVAs, but the ghost plushie didn't stutter when it said it. Just then they hear a knock on the door, and the unlikely duo begin to panic as they know it would be bad if someone walks in on him talking to some creature sprouting from his hand, so he hides it behind his back. Hyuga Orion drops her book in shock when she walks in and sees her savior awake, and she breaks into tears of joy, grateful that he finally regained consciousness. He recognizes her as just a student from the academy, so she introduces herself, and our casual Kurobohigui immediately gets on a first-name basis with her, which surprises her. But more importantly, she reminds him of the recklessness he displayed on that day and starts nagging him about not following her orders, then warns him never to disobey her like that again. Kurobohigui doesn't get why she's so mad. After all, he was just doing all that he could do to help in a dire situation like that. The air temperature drops out of nowhere, and suddenly it feels like our MC is standing clothless in the middle of the North Pole, and all this is because of the dangerous ice-cold aura now oozing from Hyuga Orion as she proceeds to ask him about what exactly happened that day, what happened to the monster, and how exactly he was able to survive. Her tearful smile is long gone, and what takes its place is an emotionless, serious look as she informs him that since he likes to do a lot, telling the truth is what he can do for all of humanity's sake at the moment. She reveals to him that he has actually been out cold for a full week since the incident happened, and then she turns on the TV to show him the current state of the world. The news reveals that the investigation of the mysterious disappearance of the strongest species is still ongoing, and during the attack, there was radio interference and all cameras were destroyed in the process, so there is no footage, record, or proof of anything that happened that day, only a testimony from an eyewitness that revealed that there was actually a boy present at the scene, and that is all the information they have. Kurobohigui is shocked as he realizes that he is the mysterious boy they're talking about on the news, and Hyuga Orion confirms it, then demands that he tell her what exactly happened that day. The strongest species is an EVA, with the potential to toast all of humanity if it so pleases, so it has to be found at all costs, and for that reason, she came to question him personally as an S rank. She reminds him of the fact that she has the permission to use force if she has to, in an attempt to intimidate him. Kurobohigui starts to seriously consider his position in all this, and admits that he doesn't remember all the details, but proceeds to start telling her all that he does know. Just before he can start his story, he hears the ringing voice of the strongest species in his head, warning him not to snitch and causing him a huge headache, so much so that Hyuga Orion has to ask if he's okay. The strongest species warns him that if he tells on them, the humans would eliminate him immediately, and he takes a minute to consider this new perspective, and actually agrees with the EVA, which brings it relief. But our righteous hero still doesn't believe in lying, so he yanks the creature out of hiding and exposes it to Hyuga Orion. Then he spills the beans, the entire pot in fact. He tells her about how he devoured the strongest species. Kurobohigui revealed everything that happened and even showed Hyuga Orion proof by exposing the strongest species EVA that is stuck to his hand, and she is shocked, but not because of his revelation, in fact quite the opposite. She is surprised because he made all that noise, but she can't see anything on his arm that's out of the ordinary, and it is then that he realizes that other people can't see the EVA or the mark on his arm, and they can't hear its voice either. Hyuga Orion still wants her answers though, and she's ready to use all means necessary to get them from him, and just at that moment, an EVA starts hovering over the building right outside, and the greatest species notices it immediately. Hyuga Orion is still nagging him for answers Kurobohigui already gave her, and his EVA ghost tells him to get out of the room as soon as possible, which confuses him, but there's not enough time for a proper explanation. Just then, the EVA monster breaks into the room, so it's a little late for that idea, and it totally catches them off guard. Hyuga Orion immediately takes action and uses her ice powers to create a shield to block them from an incoming physical attack from the monster, and they are frightened to see that an EVA had suddenly confronted them out of nowhere and unprovoked. Kurobohigui can't figure out what it's doing here or why it came, and the strongest species keeps yelling at him to get out of the building as soon as possible because the EVA they're dealing with is way stronger than Miss S rank over there. It explains that the EVA must have caught a whiff of its scent and came rushing over, which doesn't really explain the situation at all. So the plushie reveals that it has beaten most of the EVAs that are on this planet before it even came here, and now that one of them has noticed that it is in a weakened state, It has come to have its revenge and devour the strongest species, which is basically our MC, since he technically now has the body of the strongest species. It is now that Kurobo realizes how deep in trouble they actually are, and the pressure the EVA puts on Hyuga Orin's ice shield increases, cracking it, which shocks her because this ability can normally withstand the attacks of S-rank EVAs, but this one is obviously beyond that level, so it breaks through her shield quite easily. Knowing that the EVA is only after him, Kurobo plays the hero once again and pushes Hyuga Orin to run away while he distracts it. But she is sick of playing the role of the damsel in distress in this story, because she is an S-rank individual who doesn't appreciate being underestimated. She shoots ice shards, and her attack actually connects with the monster for the first time, which gives her a little confidence, but in an instant, the ice shards totally disappear from the EVA's body, and Hyuga Orin realizes that it easily melted her ice using its body heat, so it handled her attacks without even having to dodge or deflect. The EVA decides that it's about time it gave an attack of its own, and begins to charge up a mighty blast in its mouth, which Hyuga Orin detects, so she orders Kurobo to get behind her while she gets in position to try her ice shield again, and the greatest species advises him to use the distraction the human girl is creating to escape. But of course, our MC has other plans and goes off to do his own thing. He shoulder slams the monster to draw its attention, quite a stone's throw from what the girl and the EVA ghost told him to do, and Hyuga Orin reminds him that he doesn't have an alpha ability, but Kurobo tells her that he is only doing what he can. If this big overgrown bird really wants a piece of him that badly, then who is he to deny it the honor of being its opponent? Kurobo sounds really confident, but just like before, it is all bark and no bite, as he doesn't really know what to do next now that he has drawn its attention. But then he spots a tree outside and figures that if he can jump over there, then he can draw the EVA monster away from any people. The strongest species informs him that there's no way he can make that jump because that tree is hundreds of meters away from the building, and Kurobo is well aware of this, but he doesn't really have much of a choice now because it's a do-or-die situation. So he grips his knuckles, uses all his strength, and leaps off the window, and he doesn't just jump. In fact, he soars through the air and realizes that he is actually flying, not falling. One moment he is in the hospital room, the next he is hundreds of feet in the air, which feels incredible at the moment, but he has no idea how to get down, and as if that thought suddenly turned off the flight switch, he immediately starts falling down quickly. As the ground draws nearer, the greatest species tells him to shut his whining and focus on his landing instead, and he does just that and manages to land with his 2 feet, creating a huge impact. A fall like that should, on normal occasions, hurt like hell, but he oddly feels perfectly fine. Kurobo cannot understand why he is without even a scratch, even though he literally fell from the sky. So the greatest species informs him that it lent him its power, which would explain the superhuman athleticism he just displayed. Just then, the EVA monster catches up to them, which reminds them of why they jumped out of the building in the first place, to draw it away from people. They immediately make a run from it, but the EVA monster is hot on their trail and not giving them a chance to escape. The greatest species then tells Kurobo to hand over his body to it if he really wants to defeat that thing. The EVA monster is about to make everyone here its breakfast and obliterate everything else in sight. So if Kurobo doesn't want that to happen, he has to decide whether to trust the greatest species with his body, and the thing has one heck of a sinister look on its face. The EVA monster is chasing Kurobo down, and he has to decide whether to trust another monster with his body, or allow everybody around him to meet a sudden end. He wants to know what exactly the monster ghost means by this, and it tells him that it is exactly what he thinks it means. It feels like it can use his body, and it knows this because of how it lent him its power during that jump. If not, Kurobo would be nothing but a stain on the floor. The EVA monster is now gaining on them, so the greatest species urges Kurobo to give in and hand his body over so it can take the steering wheel. Kurobo takes a trip down memory lane as he considers his options, remembering all the horror and death that the strongest species brought upon while it was still in its original form, and with that, he absolutely refuses to hand over his body to such a dangerous creature, especially since its reputation is nothing to write home about. The EVA monster then fires a flame blast attack that Kurobo manages to dodge but only by a hair, and the greatest species reveals that the EVA monster is well aware that Kurobo is actually the greatest species' body, and that the level of flame it's attacking them with isn't nearly enough to completely eliminate the greatest species. Just then, they are distracted by a female scream and realize that they are approaching someone who didn't evacuate in time, and she is injured and can't walk on her own, talk less of running away. The EVA monster immediately goes for her and ignores Kurobo entirely, and he blames himself for getting distracted and tries to get the EVA monster's attention back on him. But the greatest species is not on board with that plan and urges him to hand over his body instead, but our MC just ignores its yapping. Kurobohigui reckons that if his body is truly made out of the strongest species, then he is not totally defenseless in this situation. So he uses all his might and channels it into a punch that he launches at the EVA monster, and that earns him negative aura marks as it does absolutely nothing to the monster, not even an ounce of damage. Kurobohigui is shocked at this and wonders why it didn't work, so the greatest species reminds him that it needs to lend him the power for him to be able to use it like before, which means he needs its permission to be super again, and without it, he is just a regular old human. The EVA monster prepares to attack them again, and they don't think it intends on missing its target a second time, so the greatest species asks Kurobohigui one last time to hand his body over to it, and it tells him to hurry up because the monster will soon obliterate them along with the entire hospital and everyone else in it. Kurobohigui gets tired of this freak's yapping and shuts it up, then reminds it that this is all its fault in the first place for bringing the EVA monster here, so if anybody is going to give up anything, it should be the greatest species, and it is only fair that it is the one to give up its power. Just then, the monster fires the flame attack, and it heads straight for them like a shooting comet, and the greatest species starts to seriously panic. Kurobohigui reveals to it that this is really all he can do at the moment, and if it keeps refusing to lend him its power, then they'd all be toast in seconds. But he is not afraid of dying, especially since he has already been through it. So it is really nothing too special. But the greatest species is absolutely terrified of the idea of being obliterated out of existence, so it takes his right arm, where the marking is, and fearfully dives into it while trembling until it is swallowed whole, but not before informing him that this is a one-time deal. When it has been completely absorbed, Kurobohigui starts detecting power swelling up from the pit of his stomach, and decides to launch it upwards so it doesn't hit the people or the hospital. The system calculates that he is releasing limited energy from the consumed strongest species at a release rate of 0.0001%. He launches the power upward like he planned to do, and the EVA monster tries to counter with its flame attack, so the two opposing powers collide, and it becomes a struggle. Kurobohigui is being pushed back by the force of the monster's attack, so he asks the greatest species inside of him if it really wants to die together that badly in an attempt to motivate it. And it works because the creature puts in more effort, and their power overcomes that of the EVA monster and soon overwhelms it, leading to its elimination. The girl they saved can only watch in awe as they completely one-shot the bird freak monster EVA out of existence, and all that is left is a huge corpse. The system then detects that the limited release has ended and automatically switches back to normal mode. Kurobohigui is astonished by how he just took out that huge alien with just one hit, and he realizes that the power of the strongest species really is no joke at all. But after that, his eyelids get heavy, and he passes out on the ground. It is then that Hyuga Orion arrives at the scene to help Kurobohigui, but she's quite late to the party as the battle has already ended. Then she spots him lying unconsciously next to the corpse of the giant EVA monster that even she couldn't handle and nearly toasted the both of them. She cannot even understand what is actually going on anymore and cannot bring herself to believe that the boy who is peacefully catching some Z's is the one responsible for all this.